I am Mark Stewart, and thanks to Mark Pasniakis of the Connecticut Mirror, we have an alert that might keep Connecticut from doing something that's monumentally stupid. The Connecticut legislature is about to be fully taken for a ride. Now, nearly 20 years ago, it bought into legislation that made auto emissions subject here in Connecticut to what they decide in California. And it's about to hit home because in California, they are banning the production of sale of gas-powered vehicles in 11 years, okay? By 2035, there can be none sold. Will Connecticut go the same route? Well, if we don't stop it, and that means in the hands of 7 Democrat legislators, any one of whom, if joining the more sensible legislators on the Regulations Review Committee, could end up keeping Connecticut where it should be, okay? Being conservation-minded, but not being crazy. Remember, California is a state that, though blessed with great entrepreneurial people, amazing climate, lots of resources, still has, in the last 15 years, seen 2 million people leave. And that's because of pretty much bad government policy. So taking our cues from the California legislature, which is very politically oriented, in fact, they have very leftist members who don't really care about the environment, they care about controlling others. If you do trust, even if you trust that legislature and their governors, Jerry Brown then and Gavin Newsom now, please realize why we in Connecticut shouldn't be following. It's because California's situation is inapplicable to New England. California has smog. We don't. California's smog is kept in by 3,000-foot mountains that ring their most heavily populated areas, Metro San Francisco and Metro LA. We in Connecticut have just a few small hills. California's population in those areas is the 2nd largest in the country and the 4th largest in the country. Hartford, inland, and 31st largest in the country. Bridgeport, somewhere in the 90s. New Haven, even smaller. It doesn't even crack the top 100. So what might be good for Californians by the coast is not applicable here in Connecticut. California's most afflicted smog area is Los Angeles, but Los Angeles has a car culture. They don't ride public transport the way we do. We're not huge. In LA, it's almost nothing. Almost nobody commutes on the bus to work. And even like before a football game, Rams, Chargers, they share the same stadium, SoFi. And there is a train that goes very close by. It's routinely on Sundays no more than half filled. It is a car culture there that they feel the need to rein in. We don't have that. We have a decent number of commuters and not very long commutes. We don't have such a dense population in the first place. And maybe most importantly, California has concentrated industry. In Los Angeles, there's plant after plant, back to back to back. We don't have anything like that. Even if Connecticut were like California, there's an aspect of sovereignty that we should be in control of our own laws. And to stop sales of all gas-powered vehicles would be very out of control. Here's what the restrictionists in California, and now some are in Connecticut, here's what they're missing. Number one, if you stop sales of gas-powered autos, you still leave trucks. And trucks proportionately spew far more emissions that are maybe harmful into the atmosphere. Now, let's say you stop them by some legislative force too. Well, then you're depriving us of necessities that trucks bring. Stopping all gas-powered vehicles, trucks, and cars reduces pollution by 0.03%. Okay, that's not 3%. That's 0.03, okay? 3 in 10,000 is the difference maker. By comparison, there are so many natural events that increase or decrease the carbon in the climate. It's puny what mankind, even with high restrictions, is able to even affect. Sunspot growth, a large volcano erupting somewhere, plankton growing more abundantly in the Atlantic, all of them make a bigger difference than wiping out auto emissions nationally. A single extra sunny day per, not year, per decade, per century would cause more CO2 to be emitted by extra plant growth than anything we'd be doing with these proposals. So restricting trucks and cars is not worth it. And it hurts the most vulnerable people the most. Those who can't work from home have to commute. Those whose low incomes make food and the extra price we'll have to pay for food make it more dire to their quality of life. If you replace gas-powered cars with electric vehicles, it's actually worse for the environment. Why? Because electricity usually does not come out of thin air. It is created by generation of fossil fuels. Natural gas plus coal are responsible for the majority of our electric power. When you're charging your Tesla, you are basically firing up more coal-fired plants. Maybe it's a natural gas-fired plant. Well, that requires fracking, not especially good for the environment either. Electric vehicles are arguably worse for poor people because when landlords then have to put electric chargers at the homes that they rent out, the apartment complexes, well, the energy drain from that is so much bigger. It's like running 3 times as many air conditioners, the ones that cause power outages. So you need more juice, got to refit your home in the first place, and have to pay double or triple. Who's going to pay that? Not the landlord. It's going to get passed on to the not so well-off tenant. And who are the beneficiaries? Rich people who own Teslas. To the extent that environmentalists really care about people globally, I don't think they do. But to the extent they do, can you please measure the other side of things? If we are restricted to just electric vehicles, guess who's in the zirconium mines, cobalt mines, lithium extraction? It's young kids in Africa exploited by child labor. Final reason to stop this wayward legislation? It's that the U.S. doesn't have the capacity to get to electric vehicle use that's widespread. We right now have the capacity to have about 4% of all our electric vehicles charging at a given time. So at best, maybe we triple it by 2035. And you would need to be told, well, your vehicle can be powered from 1 a.m. until 2:30 in the morning. And her vehicle's next, 2:35 until 4:05 in the morning. Okay, there's going to have to be that kind of rationing. In the meantime, we will have blackouts. California already has them in the summer when air conditioners are usually run as well. So what do the militant environmentalists say? Ooh, we'll get there. We'll get the same capacity. No, we won't. What they're thinking of is like thinking there's a unicorn in the forest nearby. There are mermaids on the coast. That is their one-sided thinking at best. Now, some of them actually know it's impossible, but again, in the desire to control others, and in this version, true environmentalists are dupes. They are controlled by these leftists. I call them nihilists. They do not want the Western world to succeed. Call them restrictionists, if you will, because they restrict us from doing healthful things. And when they do it in the name of the environment, it sounds nice. Who doesn't want to protect the environment? And it is hard to argue against because we we normally can argue against leftist charades with common sense and vision, okay? We see that is not true. Harder when it comes to environmental findings because we're not scientists. We can't really evaluate whether the global climate has cooled by 1.5 degrees Celsius over the last 3 decades, not like a sophisticated scientific organization. So that would be good if the scientific organizations were true to their words, but we've seen them lie, and the leftists will tout these lies. So when British scientists faked data, faked it because the real data didn't bear out their conclusions, it's hard to trust it. And even with agreed upon data, please remember that the dire warnings are based on models, not actuality. And models have been routinely wrong. So what's Connecticut to do with these alarmists out there with possible legislation? Well, we've got 2 ways of stopping it. A new legislature could undo an old legislative act, okay? That's possible, and electing ordinary people who don't have a serious wacko agenda would be good, but that's more than a year away. That's for 2024. It would be good to put this into a halt now, and there's a way by a regulation review committee which has only 14 members, 7 Democrats, 7 Republicans. The Republicans are all on board for sensibility. It's the Democrats that deserve to be educated or pestered by you. Hopefully, just plain educated gets them to turn around. So send them a video like this. I have an article if you want that fleshed out. Please, there are 7 of them. I'll put their names. Actually, I can read them off. They are, hang on. If they're in your district, that's great. If they're not, it's still worth maybe telling a friend who does live in that district, okay, that would help, or bothering them anyway. I'm outside your district, but I'm concerned about Connecticut. I know you are too. Please keep this regulation from taking place. So, 7 Democrats on this committee: Tom Arnone, Lucy Dathan, Bob Godfrey, Joan Hartley, James Maroney, Kathy Osteen, and Kevin Ryan. Their contact information you can find at www.cga.ct.gov/RR. I think that's for regulation review. I am Mark Stewart. Thanks for listening here, and good luck to us in Connecticut.